everybody, and welcome to the Reaper Wargaming podcast. We are in December. We are so close to the break, the holiday. I hope everyone is as excited as me, as I am. I am ready to be stuffing my face full of food and looking at boxes of plastic models that will go onto a pile that I will look at again later in the year and think, maybe I should start building some of these models that I've got given for Christmas. It's going to be a great podcast today. We have the Reaper team that went to compete in teams today, just talking about their experience. So for anyone that is interested in teams, wanting to know a little bit more about it, is it for them? All of those kind of questions, we're going to be going through that today. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert. It is for everyone. So it's going to be a really interesting conversation, especially to hear the difference between sort of individuals and teams. And actually, there is quite a big difference between the two. So listen along, hear what we're talking about, and if it's for you, just talk to us in Discord as always, and we will just give you a little bit more information if you want. But without further ado, we are going to go to Dave El Presidente to just tell us what's been going on in the club over the last since the last podcast. Dave, what's been happening? Quite a lot has been going on, right?
So we went to teams. We'll talk about that a lot very soon. We've had another few really good club nights. The amount of people that turn up now is just nuts. And because of that high kind of turnout from the members, we've officially raised over £5,000 fucking pounds for charity. F-bomb in the chat, because you know what? Yes.
Hoggers in the chat for charity.
Pats on the back all round, because that's just an astronomical number. We'd set like a realistic goal when we founded the club and started doing things that we're going to maybe try and raise 3,000, and we said, it would be like out of this world if we ever got somewhere around 5. And what makes it even crazier now is the projection could be almost 6 by the time we get to the end of January, which would be the official end of the club's first year running. So we've got 6 and a bit weeks to raise another £600-700, which I think we'll manage at the way people have been turning up. So it's just a big thank you to the community that just keeps turning up and keeps kind of growing what we're doing and getting involved. It's a real privilege to kind of steer that ship right now and see where it's going. We obviously had, for anyone who wasn't aware and didn't get sick of me spamming socials and Discord, we had the Christmas open day on Sunday. We ran for 12 whole hours. A few folk made it from start to finish, which was also like big snaps for that, because that was a long day. We had close to 30 people in throughout the day, playing, building, painting, hanging out. We had Al taking Learn to Play. We had a mega battle going on. With
Kill Teams Learn to Play as well.
Like you've never seen. There was Kill Team, yeah. Like there was a couple of guys were playing the Marvel version of Zombicide, which looked so much fun. Apparently it was like I didn't get to join in, but apparently it was so much fun that Connor is going to buy all of the expansion sets. Having played one game, he's buying all of the expansions. So that's how much fun he had. And so like that's a great advert, and it's also a sign that the club's evolving. We're not just a Warhammer club. That might be like the kind of foundation of what got us going, but there is so much scope to just come down, hang out, and try out different things. I know, Nick, you want to get more board games going, and I think having Connor bring kind of new games like that down, we've had Alien versus Predator in the past, so hopefully people see these as a way to have a different social experience on a club night, and hopefully we can maybe do more of that in the new year.
Yeah, and the club is a space for anyone that wants to game. Essentially, like we create an environment, we create the space that allows you to play any game you want, but also just bigger games that sometimes you're like, I just don't have the dining room table for it. I don't have the room to get everyone around or whatever. that's what the club provides. So honestly, anyone in the club that wants to play any game, you're just booking a table, like we always say. You can play whatever you want on that table. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be Warhammer. It doesn't even need to be Games Workshop related. It can be anything. You can come down and play Catan. I'll tell you what, if you're playing Catan and you haven't invited me, I'll be really upset. But you can play whatever you want down at the club, and that's what the space is there for. And we want to encourage it. You want to come play card games, all of that stuff, is more than welcome at the club as well. So, one other question, Dave, just before we get kicked into teams, do you want to just give people maybe a sort of roundup of what Christmas opening hours are, what that sort of timing is going to sort of look like for us at the club?
Yeah, so obviously this coming Friday, we're going to stay open, so we've got normal club night this Friday, so there's still plenty of tables to sign up for that. Christmas is on a Monday, can confirm, no Reaper Wargaming on Christmas Day. I'm taking at least that Monday off, but we are back basically straight away on the 29th. If there's interest on the Discord, we are open early if there's going to be the interest and the desire for that, for people who are off on annual leave, have time off booked or whatever, or who are sick of stuffing their face full of turkey sandwiches, or want away from their in-laws for the day because they're trapped somewhere and they just want to hopefully dig into that pile of potential that Santa Claus dropped off nice and quickly. So we'll give people that chance, and if there's enough interest, instead of the usual 5 o'clock start, we might open at kind of lunchtime, maybe 12, 1 o'clock, to give people that stretched out experience. And again, just to encourage it to kind of maintain that social aspect of the club, because it's a big thing for us, is the kind of the community, and it always has been. It'll always be a big part of it. So if we can stretch out that day, that means people can come in, even if they can get up the road early, if they are with family, you can come in, have that time, and get back before the significant other goes, "Where have you been? It's 10 o'clock. You're still out. You're never away from that Warhammer club." So, yeah. And then, essentially, we're just kind of back to normal for basically Fridays until, God, my dates are all over the place in my head now. So obviously we're not open on Hogmanay, but then we're back on the Friday again, and then it's just January normal hours. So we're shut on Christmas, we're shut on Hogmanay, extra long Friday on the 29th between Christmas and New Year's, and then we'll just smash it. And we'll have some more exciting announcements kind of in the new year, but I'm going to continue to keep that under my little hat.
Perfect. And for those of you that are looking for a GT to dust your cap off to for the start of the new year, we have one happening at the end of January. So please, if you're thinking of getting tickets, get them. They are going very quickly right now. It's the 27th and the 28th of January for that GT. Get your names in. Last time it sold out very, very quickly. So if you're looking for something competitive, that's going to be your first port of call for the competitive scene in the new year as well. So what we're going to do now is welcome Luke, Larry, Al. Thank you so much for coming down. Thank you so much for repping the club. Dave and Keir have to rep the club. It's part of their contracted obligation. Yeah. But what we'll do is, first of all, can you just explain what is Teams? We'll come to Keir. Keir, tell us, what is Teams and how is it different from sort of an individual standard GT like we were just talking about?
Okay, so Teams is, I think, a really interesting format. Typically in a Warhammer tournament, you take your army, you play 5 games, and that's your tournament. Teams is a little bit different. You and a bunch of friends, you don't have to be friends, but it will certainly help, all get together and you plan your armies. And so you can take a maximum of 1 codex a codex a maximum one time between the 4, 5, or 8 of you. There are other teams' numbers. I'm not going to list them all. I don't have all night. So, yeah. Basically, for example, you all have to have a different codex. I feel like I've done a bad job of explaining this so far, but we'll get there. It'll make sense in the end. Let's say I was taking Thousand Suns, Dave was taking Marines, Fulvio was taking Chaos Space Marines, and Nick took his GSC. Right? I could have demons allied into my Thousand Suns, or Fulvio could have demons allied into CSM, but we both can't have them because you can only use a codex a maximum of one time. So basically, you have to have kind of a mixed composition of codices, which I think is really interesting. Now, you're probably wondering how you play games. So each team has a captain, and the two captains at the start of, we'll call it a series, will have a meet to decide the matchups. So you have like a draft for sports. You each put down your first defender, and they are revealed at the same time. So now that you can see the first defender, it's, let's say, for example, we often put Dave down as our first defender in our current team. They would offer us 2 factions for Dave to play into from their remaining 4 factions. We would pick one of them, and simultaneously, this is all simultaneous, so you don't have extra information over your opponent, we'd be offering them 2 of our players, except from Dave, one of which they would pick to play into. The player they don't select gets shuffled back in, and so there's 3. So now we have to choose our second defender, and we both turn over our second defenders at the same time, and we suggest our last 2 attackers. They pick one of them, we pick one of their attackers for our second defender, and the 2 that are left over play each other. So you choose your matchups like that. Super interesting. Another layer of complexity, we also draft for the maps that you're playing on. There's a mixture of heavy, medium, and light boards. Basically, you would roll off, and whoever won the roll off would get to choose. They either get to pick. So if we assume that our first defender is like the first match that we picked, and the first defender of whoever wins the roll off is map 1. The first defender of whoever lost the roll off is map 2. Basically, if you win the roll off, you can choose to either take game, and so on and so forth, pick the map for game 1, 4, and 5, or pick the map for game 2 and 3. So you can have the first pick and more picks, but you have picks that come into effect at the end of the draft. Or you can pick the 2 in the middle, which are kind of high stakes. So generally you want to pick more maps, but if you have a comp that doesn't really care about maps, you can do more things about just denying your opponents certain types of map. I think there was a point in the teams where we were playing against some kind of... there was a list, I think we played a series against a list of a lot of vehicles, and we ended up putting them on the heavy board just because it was going to mess with their movement, which I think worked. But yeah, it's really interesting format. Quite complicated, and if I had a whiteboard, it'd be a lot easier to draw and show you. But yeah, hopefully you understand from that description.
Yeah. And so essentially, you are playing as a team of either 4, 8, multiples of 4 by the sounds of it, and you
we had 5 actually.
Oh, you had 5. Okay, correct.
Yeah. So the leftovers the leftovers play each other at the end. Because obviously there'll be 4 selections. So
yeah. And then as a team, you are trying to accumulate as many points as a team and deny as many points to your opponent as possible.
This is probably the biggest thing, is teams isn't scored like your classic Warhammer game. You don't win the series by winning more games, though you can. You score on a differential. So, for example, if you finish the game and your opponent and you are within 5 points of each other, that is a draw, and we would call that a 10-10 draw. If you beat your opponent by 5 points, the differential slips up 1 and theirs slips down 1. So you go to an 11-9 win. Win by 10, 12-8 win, so on and so forth. The best win you can get is a 20-0, which is winning by 50 points. the worst loss you can take is a 0-20, losing by 50 points. When all 5 games have been played out and you're all playing them at the same time, then you add up the total amount of points that your team has. Now, I believe you need to, by the end of the series, clear your opponent's score by 5 points again. Otherwise, the series is called a draw.
Cool. And then, so essentially, your composition is in how each, you don't want to have a team full of similar builds, as in army builds. You want to have different things. So maybe someone that's like really good into Tau or into an anti-tank, or someone that has that maybe more hoardy feel, or someone that does a lot more control, or it allows you to maybe play around with lists a little bit more than go into a GT where you're like, there is a certain amount of lists that will always be played, and you'll always play that list.
Yeah, definitely. Because you have more control of your matchups, means you might have fewer poor matchups, which means, so for example, like if there's a build that would be viable in solo tournaments, but for one really common matchup that makes it totally unviable, then you can play it anyway, right? So for example, Tau are very good in teams, but I think Tau can struggle with some matchups that are common in the meta. So if you can choose to not play against a faction with Tau, you can do really well.
Yeah.
Like, how would you guys, just a quick go around of the players, if you could sum your faction and archetype up in a sentence, like so that chat know kind of who has a list, like what are the lists were. I would say for me, it's Tau, all the vehicles.
Oh, good to Luke.
How would you describe yours? Oh, what was that? Sorry, Luke?
I was going to say, mine was Eldar, cheating, not fun, mean list.
I was running the Raven Guards. Raven Guards.
Oh god, I played against Eldar
I actually tailored my list more towards the terrain, because I took a lot of walkers rather than big vehicles, just to get around that heavy board and maximise staying away from people. So it worked-ish. It worked fairly. More on that later.
Did it work? Oh, it did work. Good.
Dave, one sentence on your list.
Scout move, dig holes, hope for the best.
Nice.
And if you can't gather that that's a Votan way of playing, then well, you don't get the reference. Sorry.
Larry, one sentence on your list.
Grey Knights with 30 Terminators and hope your opponent doesn't know what Grey Knights do.
Your list could be summed up as E5, 2 up, 4++.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nice.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So that kind of like brings us to the comp, go into the comp. I'm going to come to Dave again quickly. And Dave, just give us your experience of it. You've played teams a couple of times now. You've played individual a couple of times now. So sort of what are your feelings between the two? Like, how are they the same? Do they feel different? Like, what is the general vibes of teams?
So the 5-man teams Clan Wars event we just done, that was my 11th competitive event of the season. Actually, of this year. I've actually banked more for what would be the quote-unquote season. But of 2023, that's number 11. And I can honestly say that teams is the best way to play 40k, like, by a country mile. Like, I've been to, like, UKTC Super Majors, I've been to little RTTs, I've taken silly lists to random events just to think you're going to have fun. And you don't have fun because you're stood there for 3, 4, 5 games in a weekend trying to have fun, and you realise, oh, my silly list isn't fun to spend 15 hours of a weekend getting smashed around. But see if you take that silly list and you put it in a teams situation and you're essentially trolling 2 or 3 factions and you're trying to hope that you run into those 2 or 3 factions, all of a sudden you have a great time. Like, it's so much more fun. Sometimes with teams, the other great thing is the situation I was in for almost every event. 4 of the 5 rounds, I was the first defender, which basically means I'm there to to take an absolute beating and steal points at the end. Some games it happened. 2 games it definitely didn't happen. But that's just the nature of teams. Like you have to be ready to fall on the sword in the hope that you can kind of bait out a matchup that's going to suit somebody else. And that's why I literally said, like, my list scout moves and then digs a hole. Like, I move so far and then I just stand there and I don't go anywhere else, and I might deep strike a couple of units in the back if I get space. But other than that, I'm only going so far into the middle of the board, and then I'm just standing there, and it's a case of, can you kill all my stuff before I score my points? If you can, you'll beat me. If you can't, I'll beat you, and that's just the nature of it. So I absolutely adore teams. I would highly recommend it to anyone. Obviously, events are few and far between, and as a club, and I think based on what we'll probably hopefully hear about from everybody else, there's scope to start running some small team events in next year's club calendar. Because honestly, it's a far more social way to play 40k as well. There's less feels bad, there's less stress, there's less awkward interactions. The kind of the style of games that you play, they're just more interactive. They're more engaging. They're more enjoyable. And
I think
for anyone that's been on the fence,
players that are,
for anyone that's been on the fence,
a little bit more experienced.
Yeah, there is a big element. Yeah, there's an element of, and the guys will probably tell you for themselves, there is a kind of experience gap that you get at teams. You see people who have drifted away from the single scene who are just like, I only play teams events now. From what I'm aware of from kind of tapping into the guys at Team Scotland, they're, as a kind of group now that they've selected their WTC team, they're pivoting way more to going to teams events between now and the WTC than singles events. Like, that's now they're shifting how they do things. So like there's definitely, I think, going to be a culture shift in Scotland towards more teams, and it can only be for a good thing, because it's so much more fun. Cool, you won't get 500-600 people like you will at the Nottingham or like the LGT or Bristol and all these big super majors, but what you will get is 5 great games, and you'll have a really like positive experience, win or lose. We went with the hopes of not coming last, and spoiler alert, we didn't, but we can talk about that later. Yeah, but
and it just
that's
sounds,
all I can say just now.
Yeah, and I think like it just sounds like a much less stressful way of playing it. You put a lot less pressure on yourself. You're part of a team. If you lose, that's kind of okay as well, because some matchups you're gonna lose, but your role is to do something a little bit different, which is to deny points, which is kind of another interesting way to play the game. So it gives you different ways to play as well. I'm going to go just go across to Luke really quickly now. And you're talking about Eldar, top of the meta right now, the scary matchup for a lot of people. Did you feel kind of a pressure with playing Eldar, as you are expected to be the boogie person to win your games? Was there a pressure there?
I was going to say, you just said, oh yeah, being in a team, the pressure's off, you're just having a blast with your mates, and you are. And like, I remember when the message went around saying, oh, this is the team we're going to take. I was like, yeah, also on the team, this is going to be a great, I'm playing Eldar, yeah, that's my faction, favourite army. And I was like, oh wait, I'm playing Eldar. And then I got immediately a list or two from Dave being like, here's triple Wraithguard Brick, and here's Wraithguardian Karmfugen, double spinner. And I was like, oh, I was thinking maybe Avatar MSU. It's like, no, this is the list that needs to go get points. And that's very different to how I've normally played. Like, I normally play very kind of cagey, very kind of balanced. Like, maybe I'll squeak a win, like very high scoring games. And that doesn't cut it for teams. A 10-10 draw would cut it for our team. If our ambition was to not come last, that meant we had to win at least one series. And I did feel that, like, kind of pressure that, I need to go out and just win, but stand on someone's throat until they stop moving.
It's like the Ivan Drago, I must break him
from
Yeah.
Rocky, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how
And
did
yeah,
you? So how did you get on then, Luke, in your games?
I think I did okay. I had a blast all the way through. What I found really interesting is we'd planned. I say we, Keir mostly being the mastermind, had planned what we all wanted to go into, and we did a really good job of protecting me and trying to get us into the matchups we wanted. But it also turned out sometimes that's also the matchup the opponent wanted. So like they seemed to want to throw me into sisters, but we also wanted to throw me into sisters. And first game I won 15-5, which I was pretty happy with.
That's good.
Particularly as my practice game against James, who's a fantastic sisters player at the club, he stomped me, and I was like, "Oh no, this is not how it needs to go." On the day, and I played against a very similar triple exorcist build. Managed to get the win there. Next one was I think I got a bye because they had a player that didn't turn up. So they very wisely paired me off into that player, which would have been the matchup we wanted anyway, me into the CSM build to kind of block each other out. And then third game was into Sisters again, this time a Horde build, and I beat that 12-8, not as much as I felt I was beating it, but I just couldn't kill it fast enough. There was hundreds of bodies on the board, and I was lifting hundreds of bodies off the board every turn, but it just wasn't enough to neuter their primary scoring. And it also didn't help that I thought I was doing way better than I did, so I maxed assassinate turn 1. So I was like, oh yeah, wow. 16, 15, this is going to be cruising, and then they just kept creeping up with the primary score. Round 4 was a bit of a... I felt like I let the team down there. It was into Death Guard, and I thought... naively thought that was a good game, and that was not knowing the matchup. That list apparently was built to completely take Eldar apart.
Yeah, and, it smashes Eldar really hard, but I didn't realise that during pairings.
I got Death
Guard? So make them move 3 inches. That'll be easy for you. I mean, also, you played the wrong mission.
Yeah, I did. We did do that. There was an extra objective in the middle that shouldn't have been there. And so yeah, who knows what the game would have been like if we'd played it correctly. I think the reason I felt bad about that one is if I squeak 1 point there, like if I lose 11-9, not 12, we draw the round. And it's like, I felt like I didn't do my job. And then to round it off really nicely, pressure was off a bit. We'd kind of cemented our, was it 6th place? 7th place? I forget.
I want to say 6th, yeah.
Just say 6th.
Went into the Eldar Mirror.
It was
against the double avatar build. Yeah. So yeah, went into the double avatar build. It was a matchup I really liked. I know Eldar, so I know what they can do, and I know what I can do to them. We started the game with 3 avatars, ended the game with 0 avatars, and I won 20-0. So that was, I finally felt like I found the pump to stamp on a list there.
Saltire are in the Twitch chat, by the way.
Yeah.
So
the guy took it like an absolute champion. Irish.
You're Irish.
To play a game.
Yeah.
I felt awful.
Yeah, it sounds like you did actually pretty well, and you're going to have matchups that you don't do well into, and with anything, it's not individual performance, it's the team matchups, things like that. Like, stuff isn't always going to go to plan, but it's how you kind of like bounce back from that as well is the important bit. And it sounds like you went from quite a big defeat, or a defeat into those Death Guard where it didn't go as planned, but then came back onto that last game, which is important, you know. I'm going to come over to Larry now.
That Death Guard player.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, quick shout out to that Death Guard player. It could have been a lot worse. I was like, just in a moment of madness, was like, oh yeah, I'll put my Incarn down here, completely out of sight from everything and completely protected. And he went, you know I can pick that up turn 1, right? I just move here, and just lambast it. And I was like, oh no. And he very, very kindly was like, you know, the intent was there that it was supposed to be hidden. Move it somewhere else, because otherwise it's a 20-0. And I was like, you're a gem. And then he stomped me 13. 37 anyway.
So he let you off a little bit. But yeah, I'm just going to come across to Larry now. And Larry, you've been playing for quite a while, and been playing 40k for a while, but this is your first teams event, and you were kind of playing a bit of an odd faction, one that's maybe fallen a little bit outside of the competitive scene recently. Like, how did you find that? How did you find playing Grey Knights? And you sort of said at the start that sort of hope that people didn't know what they did or didn't really get what they were doing. Like, did you find that a bit of an advantage as well?
Told Keir I wouldn't play if I wasn't the Eldar player, but yeah, he vetoed me on that one. So
I said no, enough your pitch.
No, Grey Knights, and I think in hindsight, on reflection, I probably shouldn't be the Eldar player. Just to touch on what some of Luke had said there about they are the faction that seems you want to be getting the big scores with them. I'm probably similar. My default is play a very close defensive game. I am not good at going out and being aggressive and taking those risks that you have to take to put yourself in a position to score those big scores. So I was quite happy playing Grey Knights. Probably, I mean, I don't have a ton of experience, but certainly, yeah, probably I probably got into playing competitive 40k during lockdown. Just there was a whole bunch of time to spend on digital toy soldiers, playing online tournaments. So that was all very a lot of American tabletop simulator events. So they were late 8th edition, early 9th. They were all playing ITC rules. So, and that's all very, you just look at the scoreboard. It doesn't matter what the differential is. You're just trying to score more than your opponent, deny them points, score points of your own. And that's always been my mindset. So I was always quite skeptical about team scoring. I heard about it, and then when it came out of lockdown, it was time to go to real events in Scotland. I was like, why is everyone playing this horrific WTC differential scoring? This isn't real 40k. I hate it. And this event's completely blown me away. It's such a good format. You can see why, all the top players rave about teams. They say it's the best way to play 40k, and yeah, I can see why. And Grey Knights as a faction they were quite a fun choice. They're a faction I'm comfortable with. I played them a bunch. They were probably my sort of go-to faction in 9th edition. And their play style is kind of, you don't win by loads, but you rarely lose by loads as well. I think it's the main strength. They're quite durable, and they're quite persistent when it comes to scoring your primary mission. You've got these big blocks of 10 Terminators with 3 OC each. It's very difficult for your opponents to push you off of primary objectives. And you've got all these mobility tricks, teleporting your guys around to deploy teleport homers or get in table corners if you're playing tactical and stuff. So, and yeah, I mean, I was not being entirely serious. There's more to it than hoping my opponent doesn't know what they're doing. I promise, but I think there probably is an element when you're playing one of these less popular factions. I mean, everyone knows what Marines do, everyone knows what Eldar do. Most people are going to know what CSM do. But with Grey Knights, they have some pretty nasty tricks, and if you're not ready for them, you can get completely blown out when you line up half your army to shoot something, and all of a sudden they have the same stratagem as Eldar. They get to just move a unit out of the way, and you can waste a lot of your opponent's resources. So yeah, I was definitely very confident with my choice. My list, yeah, could have probably been a bit more refined, but I think it works in teams because I leaned very heavily into these durable Terminator units, and I didn't take Castle and Crony purifiers, which is in singles events you'll see them doing really well. All the winning Grey Knights list will run that, but in teams, thanks to Keir, he can just put me into matchups against factions that don't really have the firepower to shift my Terminators off of objectives. So, and yeah, I mean, all my opponents were lovely. All my matchups were really good fun. Yeah, I had a great time. Loved it.
Right. And how did your matchups go in the end? Did they go the way that you wanted them to go? How did you find it?
So round one was Connor Leach on his Tau. Very strong player, clearly knew what he was doing. And this is probably just my lack of... I didn't have much time to get any practice in prior to the event. So although Tower, I kind of knew in the back of my mind what Tau did, but I'd only ever played that matchup from the Eldar side. I'd never actually played Grey Knights into Tau this edition. And I was just thinking, oh wow, my list relies super heavily on these durable units that no one can kill in one shot. Tau can kill them in one shot quite easily. So I thought, okay, it's teams though. I might lose, but I just have to make sure the margin of loss is as small as I can make it. So yeah, I think I just got quite lucky. I sort of my brain just defaulted to just play aggressively onto objectives and try and rack up as many points as I can before he inevitably tables me. And that worked out quite well. He did eventually table me and did eventually win the game. But I think at one point their captain was going around. They were a great team. The team we played round won a lot of either current or former WTC Scotland members. That's the impression I got. So they were saying, oh, this could be a 20-0 to the Tau player. And I think we ended up getting an 8-12 out of that one. So a bit of luck and a bit of, just autopilot and muscle memory kicking in. Probably saved us a few points there. Round 2 was Necrons, which I think they're just so slow. Grey Knights can just dance around them. It was Purge of the Foe as well, where you get primary points for killing one unit and killing more units. They can basically never kill my units. And I pretty much guarantee I'll kill like a Scarab, turn 1 I kill a Scarab thing. That's kill 1 and I've killed more than my opponent. Turn 2 I'll pick up a destroyer or something. Kill 1, kill more. So I just kept racking up kill 1, kill more. That was fairly straightforward. Round 3 was a great game against Martijn from the Netherlands, playing his Blood Angels. I get the impression he is another hugely experienced WTC player. That was very, very close. But it was the one game where I was so glad, because I think I'd originally, not only was I not allowed to play Eldar, I wasn't allowed to take Imperial Agents in my list, so I didn't have a Calidus. But I did have a Rhino sitting on my home objective, and that was a godsend that game, because his Whirlwinds couldn't pop it, and his Inceptors couldn't pop it either, deep striking within 3 of it. So it just sat on my home objective, and I was like, thank goodness this Rhino's here. So that was another really close one. Round 4, I think, was a scary matchup. That was into James. Thing is Tyranids. Lovely guy. I think he won Best Painted. His army was stunning. That was a really fun match. But I was thinking, yeah, my guys suck at killing high toughness, regenerating monsters. And his list was 90% high toughness, regenerating monsters. So I think I threw about 1,000 points into... He had a Northern Emissary on one side of the board, a Northern Emissary on the other. So I think I threw about 1,000 points into one Northern Emissary and just prayed I could kill him. And I did. Literally, he failed his final Feeble Pain on the last one. And I got just to hold half the board, and he held the other, and that was a draw. And the last round was Marines again. And I think that was, they're playing these really slow units with the aggressors or the Blade Guard. Very scary damage output, but you can just kind of teleport around the board and avoid them. So, yeah, I think, huge shout out to the team captain for pairing me into winnable games. And apologies that I just had no experience with the Sisters matchup, which I was begging Keir not to put me into, because I just don't know what they do in this edition, but apparently I'm supposed to crush them. So
it's funny because I was actually speaking to Typhus about this after the tournament. I had a bottle of whiskey that he clocked on a table, and he's kind of meandered over. And I was chatting to him, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, how do Grey Knights do it to Sisters?" Because in my head, I was like, "They gotta do it." I was like, "Oh yeah, Grey Knights smash Sisters, dude!" And we were stressing leading up to the series because Larry was like, "Please don't pair me into Sisters, man. I have no idea what to do." That being said, not pairing you into Sisters is still the right thing to do, because if you don't know what they do, Grey Knights might not smash Sisters. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's
they're all toughness 3, and all my guys are strength 6, and I think I don't think that, in hindsight, having thought about it and chatted to a couple of people, I think that's just
even your bolt guns just go to work.
My excuses.
And they have
preparation.
Yeah, they have that same thing which Grey Knights kind of suffer from, which is not having a lot of being able to damage high toughness stuff as well. So, but you don't want to go into something that you're like, oh my god, what on earth is even going to happen? Like not knowing at all what's going to happen can be stressful.
Well, yeah, it would be even worse if I went into
And
a matchup that I'm supposed to win favorably and then got smashed. Because
I mean, that series you still won, and then Luke still beat Sisters. So actually, to be honest, the draft still
pairing
worked
mastermind Keir.
I would tell you. It's not that I didn't know the Grey Knight Sisters matchup as well.
Yeah.
I just know. I was lucky with the pairings, and I was really lucky to have, like, you guys all worked really hard if you were in a bad pairing to sort of stem the flow of blood. Everyone did really well. Made my job really easy. So
if we
just sort of one last thing. Just all my opponents were brilliant throughout the weekend. Grey Knights are a pretty tedious army to play against because I'm basically just waiting for people to make mistakes and try and capitalize. But my opponents all were lovely, great sports throughout, and I think that's just another huge props to the team's format. Right, everyone's there to have a good time. Yeah, I was really impressed with the general vibe. So,
and that makes a massive difference as well to your enjoyment as well. So, awesome. So, if we come across to Al, this is your first competitive anything? Is it, Al?
I mean, I'll be honest.
Yeah. So, how was it for you? How did you find it?
Honest,
was it
prior to coming
a nice
Reaper,
way to
I've always been massively against competitive because I was like, I'm here to play Space Barbies. I want to have fun. I really want to have fun. But talking with the guys, talking with Dave in particular, I was like, this sounds like a good laugh. And obviously Keir was like, yeah, it's really fun. And I was like, okay, let's give it a go. So like coming into this competitive scene and like walking in and seeing all these players, seeing the team shirts and sort of noticing the sort of models on display, I was like, oh, these guys are really good. I'm not sure how I feel about this. 5 minutes into my first game, I was like, I love this. This is great. Everyone was super nice. Such a cool bunch. The gameplay was obviously, it was competitive. It was difficult, but I never felt like I was being patronized or looked down on. It was mainly sorry, I've stomped you. And I'm like, yeah, you have. That's fine. So, it's super cool, super fun, and super recommended. I'm literally just pulling up mine because I have a terrible memory. I had fun with my matchups. I think I brought a list that.
And how did your
from
matchups
what I could
go?
tell from the reactions, most people like, I don't know what to do with that. So I took a triple Redemptor list, so 3 Redemptors and a Ballistus, and people were sort of looking, going, "Where's your Whirlwinds?" Don't have any. Okay, so people were prepared for one list and then got thrown off by a completely different list. So anything I kind of went into, because I had a fairly balanced army with lots of infiltrators and lots of sort of movement shenanigans, it didn't really matter what I went into. It was just quite a balanced list that could score or deny. So great fun. It was interesting. I did learn a few lessons quickly. Like round 1.
Yeah.
I got first introduction was straight into Beast Boys with the Orcs. I played them in the past, had fun. Tried shooting them off the board, failed to shoot them off the board. Then they advanced. And that hurt. And I was like, all right, cool, this is fun.
Hard match.
Had some shenanigans, like I say, I love that word. Lost, I think it was a 16-4 once my app loads. It was 16-4 to them, and I was like, okay, I didn't get 20-0'd. Victory for me, which is a plus. Then I came up second round into Space Wolves. I've not played Space Wolves before. I've definitely not played Space Wolves in 10th. Space Wolves hurt. Space Wolves really hurt. He tabled me quite quickly and 20-0'd me, and it was. I kind of thought, I can do this. It's Marine on Marine. It's just going to be a bit of a slugfest. No, they are quick. They are powerful. He was running 4-up Von wolves who just would not die no matter what I put into them. Even with 3 macroplasmas supercharging and just laying shots into them, they just shrugged everything. So, yeah. They were. Oh, he did. Yeah. Oh, there was some weird, funny things. I think the thing that hurt the most is he was running. He's running the wolves as white scars as well. So he's literally was move advanced charge. And when you're doing that with wolves, it's a 30-inch threat range, and literally no man's land was 30. I think less than 30-inch. I might have been
white scars. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was the weird diagonal one, but the way that he deployed, he just had perfect lines just for a slight curve round and straight into anything. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. One thing to note is obviously because it was my first competitive
24, is that
event.
Right?
That's great.
When I first started, I was like, I know what I'm doing, and then got humbled quite quickly. So then I started thinking a lot more, and I kind of felt like my skill level sort of had a weird curve, because going into round 3, I went up against Necrons, which I was not overly excited about because Necrons don't die. They really don't. But I managed to 10-10 with him. I think we both were thinking quite a fair bit in the game. I know that towards the end it got quite intense, but managed to squeak a nice draw, which happy days for me again because I've just been 20-0'd. Coming back on the next day, first matchup Black Templars again, Marine versus Marine, expecting to get stomped, didn't. Threw some weird random moves into them, learned some lessons. Running into round 5, it was It was War Dogs. War Dogs hurt. War Dogs suck. Can't kill them. Really can't kill them. Learned quickly about not splitting fire. Still, I tend to always try and focus fire, but with War Dogs, it is focus the entire army on one, and they move through buildings, apparently. I was told categorically, they can't move through buildings, and he was like, one thing to know, I can. I have strats to do this. So, yeah, fun. But honestly, this event has kind of ruined 40k for me, because now Teams is just so, like, on another level. It's so fun and so brilliant to play, because even if you're not winning, you're like, all right, cool. I'm not going to score points, so neither are you. I'm going to just stop you scoring points and let my other teammates who are obviously higher skill or in better matchups, let them get the points. At the end of the day, it's a teams event. It's you're working together rather than just being like, I need to score as many points for me. So just the vibe of that is fantastic. So yeah, thoroughly recommend it. Yeah, sorry.
Great, thanks so much, Al. Dave. No, it was great. Dave, coming into you. So you were saying Votann, an army that you've loved for a long time, and they've come back into vogue, which is great. But it sounds like your list was like a bit of an all or nothing situation you had going on. How did your matchups go? How did you find the list that you were running?
So I've been playing this list now for a little while. I'm coming up on like 40 games, just slamming the same list over and over and over again, understanding its limits and seeing it in a whole bunch of different environments and scenarios on different terrain formats and different mission packs. I tell you what, even when you're losing, it's just so much fun, because the entire army that I'm running just scout moves and just takes most of the board before the game even begins. And a lot of the times, if you get to go first, you take even more of the board, which is just, it's actually quite staggering how much pressure you can put on. My first game, I went into Ryan, who's one of the Shire Knights. He's on Team Scotland again this year. We played this same game like a month ago when I was down in Nottingham at the Battle of Britain event. What I failed to appreciate was the tweaks to his list. And the tweaks to his list are really good. Because in the first game, I took six or 7 points off him when we played it previously. So I felt comfortable knowing, look, if we put me down first, they're going to chuck Ryan at me and they're going to get as many points as they want. And I thought, cool, I'll steal some points again. It's fine. And we've played this out. I'll probably potentially be able to steal some more. No, I got 20 old. And it was nuts. I put all my tanks. I went first. I had all my tanks in the right place, and basically all of my charges with my berserk units, which are really like the linchpin of this list. I basically failed all of them, and I was left with all of my melee units just sat in the open, ready for him to move on, tag, kill, and take all the objectives. And at that point, you're like, cool, game's basically over, but you carry on playing anyway, just on the off chance that you can squeak a point at the end. But I've yet to kill Angron in any of my games into World Eaters. And I don't even mean kill him properly. I mean just kill him once before he even comes back.
You have so many guns.
Because Angron's just an issue. Yeah, that guy. But no, like I've played Ryan before. Ryan's a great player, and I think this is the great thing about teams is you play different people, and every now and again you bump into somebody again, and there's a lot to be learned from guys of his caliber that go to WTC and play at high level events regularly. It's the way they move, it's the way they talk to you throughout the game, it's the way that they perceive your threats, it's the way that they understand their own objectives, be it how they're positioning, how they're counter positioning, and it's actually really, even getting dismantled 20-0, you're able to take an interesting step back from the table and watch it happen and actually understand it in real time. Whereas in singles, when somebody starts to do that to you, I've found in the past you can kind of turn in on yourself and you're kind of panicking. You're going, oh well, I'm losing this game, and it's. Whereas in teams, because you get a bunch of other people playing around you, you get to take that step back, and somebody maybe comes up to you from the next table, checking in on how your game goes, and you can actually have that like moment of respite in your game and go, I'm fucked. But you start to see something, and you go, cool, I'll apply that in the next game, or if I get another chance, I'll maybe not commit that resource here, I'll maybe wait a turn, and then I'll, but the way I play Votan is it's literally full send, turn one, dig a hole, kill me if you can. And in World Eater's case, they can. Round two went into another person that's on Team Scotland, Ricky Sims, who's up from towards Aberdeen way. He was running T-Sons. Now, I felt really comfortable going into this matchup because Keir and I have played T-Sons so many times at this point where I'm like, I know this matchup inside and out. I know what's coming my way. I need to take the board, full send, and then I need to wait. Did that, started to put up good points, applied a lot of pressure, was kind of in the driving seat for the first 3 turns, and then he had his go turn, and the way that the terrain was for our map, I had kind of a big kind of box around the middle objective, and it kind of put me in a weird kind of position where I didn't quite get the tanks where they needed to be to really threaten his home objective and make him make harder decisions. And instead he got quite a lot of good firing lanes to just pick things up with some crossfire and some flamers and some kind of witchfire spells. And eventually, by the time we got to the end of that game, it flipped from me being up by maybe the chance of taking this game to like a 12-8. He won 13-7 in the end, just as and this is what I've found with my list and the way I play it, at least. It's probably just the way I play it. But if I lose too many resources between kind of turn 3 to 4, I'm just too slow to kind of catch back up in the kind of later stages of turn 4 or turn 5. Round 3 to cap out the first day, went into CSM. I actually threw myself under the bus to take CSM. CSM are a bit of a problem for Votan, but I had some quite fortunate situations play out. I actually did make all my charges. the Sagittars did pop things when I needed them to pop them, and my really hilarious -2 to your move, -2 to your advance rolls, and -2 to your charge roll, 4 up from the Berserks, finally came lucky for me, and I basically kept a squad of the... God, what are those big, silly Devastator type guys from the CSM, the Obliterators? Yeah. I kept them trapped in a building, so that was hilarious. They because of the size of their base and because of the wall, they can't get through the wall, so they're just stuck there. So like I had a few unfortunate things go there, and ended up winning that game 15-5. I think that's one of those things where if Votann get that breathing room, then they start to put the points up in ways that other people don't. Day 2, back into CSM. This time I ran into Bruce, who's one of the new faces on Team Scotland. He was on my team recently, was in Battle of Britain as part of the kind of extended Scottish kind of contingent that went down for that. He was running CSM there, put up good numbers, and held him to a good game. But my God, right? See these accursed cultists. Oh, they're a pain in the ass. Like, they're just so difficult to shift, and they keep coming back, and they keep rapping and tagging, and you're just like, die. Like, just die and let me play the game. But they don't. And Bruce went on to win that 20-0. There was a couple of things late game where had I held on to an objective here and managed to keep a character alive on another part of the board, that I actually put enough points up for the team for us to actually win that round, which is a shame. But again, I think that's the stakes. It's everybody always feels like they dropped a point or two, and everybody feels responsible, but they're not, because they all add up anyway.
Yeah.
And then the last game, I had the joy of playing our friends from Saltire, and ran into Custodes, and I thought, Custodes, this will be fine. I played Custodes a few times. We'll deal with this, no problem. And turn 1, 4 Sagittars failed to kill a tank, at which point the tanks turn around and go, goodbye Sagittar, goodbye Sagittar. Next tank goes, goodbye Sagittar, goodbye warrior squad that got out the Sagittar. And I'm like, oh no. Okay. I went from going, cool, immediate full throttle pressure, where like if I kill one of these tanks and get to charge the other one, like I can end this game in like 3 turns, because he's just going to have no resources. Because that list relies on the tank sitting back, holding objectives, picking things off at range, and letting all of the wardens and all the kind of infantry, custodian guard, whatever you call them, kind of rush forward and kind of advance and charge. But they can't do that on some of these missions if there's nothing in the back. You know, they become quite redundant assets. And that was a really close game right till the end. And then I think the way that it panned out in the kind of 5th turn, he pulled the right cards. He got enough of the primary to win by like 11 battle points, which turns that to 12-8. So it was like such a close back and forth game, despite me thinking, oh crap, I've let everybody down last turn by just going balls to the wall. But no, it was great. It was a great weekend. I can't wait for the next one. And to echo what everybody said, it is a different experience. You can think your list is the best or the worst, and there'll be situations in a teams event where if you get paired the right way, you'll actually discover that the reality is actually the opposite of your assumption, that your list does do well, and that you can put up points.
Great. Well, it sounds like you were a bit of a sacrificial lamb, Dave, all weekend there.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like when you're the first defender, you kind of your first defender. You either build it so that your first defender is an absolute unit that can just take a pounding over and over and over again, and maybe is always going to get 5 points. Say it's built to get you 5 points every round. My first defender list is a bit more like I'm there to take an absolute beating, but if you don't respect it and if you don't kind of approach Votann the right way, I'll actually put up a lot of points. which is obviously what happened in that third game. If CSM don't play that right, and it's the fact that I basically played 2 CSM lists that were almost identical, where the only change was really the cultists and a couple other little units. And you see the difference between winning 15-5 and getting 20-0 the next day, playing the same faction. And that's also the really interesting thing about teams is it doesn't take much to tweak a build to all of a sudden just change the entire way that faction plays into other opponents. And these are just, again, you just learn these things.
No, definitely. So finally coming to you, Keir. Tell us about your matchups, but also tell us a little bit as you're going through there as the team captain for this event. Have you also got like other things going on in your head? How easy was it for you to focus on your matchup while having the pressure of being team captain?
My matchup was really easy because I decided that at every opportunity that I could pair myself into Eldar, I would. So my matchup was never really like something I had to consider, because I knew that, or I had expected a lot of Eldar players would really chomp at the bit to get the chance to play in a Tau, because usually that's a really hard win for them. But I had teched my list a little bit to help take on Eldar. So we'll go through it one game at a time. So we played against I can't remember the name. What would they fucking call themselves? Round 1. Mutineers?
Mutineers,
Is that their team
yeah.
name? Yeah. Anyway, it was like Connor Leach on Tau, Matty, Ryan Kerr, etc. And I played against Alan Davidson, who is a really, really nice guy. But I didn't realize. I was like, so you kind of know how Tau works? I was talking to pre-game. He's like, yeah, I play Tau for Team Scotland.
Your Tau daddy.
Yeah, so he's my Tau dad now, I've decided. I don't know if he knows he's my Tau dad, but he's my Tau dad.
He knows now.
And the game was close until turn 4. Kind of turn 4, it was looking 10-10 till turn 3, and then turn 4 it turned to 12-8. And then turn 5, I couldn't kill the stuff fast enough, and it was just turned into an 18-2, which is grim. But it's not a 20-0. And all I'm trying to do pretty much every round is like speed bump Eldar. Like that's my only objective, is to speed bump the Eldar player as hard as I can. So I had a couple of bits on my list, like Sky Rays, because they reroll all hits against fly, and they have some strength 6 burst cannons that absolutely mince up Eldar infantry. So it was actually, there's a couple of little bits in there for them. So that game 1 was a very enjoyable game, but went poorly. The pairings for round 1 were also a bit weird. We didn't have anyone who really wanted to play in the World Eaters, because they're fast. They're really, really I think they might be the fastest army in the game right now, aside from Eldar, because Eldar just move 24 with warp spiders and stuff like that, but they're super fast. Round 2 was another kind of tricky. I'm trying to look on BCP at the pairings, but I think the pairings are a bit off. Anyway, round 2, we played against. Is that Aberdeen? Round 2. Yep. Played against Aberdeen, so I know T-Suns, and I know Votan can beat T-Suns, but I was kind of thinking that's kind of a good one for Dave, because I know T-Suns can definitely beat Eldar. I really did not want to pair look at them at all, because with T-Suns being able to double move stuff, they can just get LOS on Night Spinners or on Wraithguard, and at that point you're just it's a tough game. So there's a couple of matchups to kind of avoid. Sisters, we were not super sure about, but Luke had the best chance. So I think we. They paired into CS. They paired CSM into Luke, which was clever, because meant they didn't have to play against Eldar, so we could potentially have taken more points. Might have lost also, but yeah, it was clever to pair into Eldar. Just like, cool, we're already taking one loss, let's not take two. In hindsight, probably should have had Luke as our first defender, so we must play into Eldar. But then they could have maybe, yeah. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I played Eldar again because I was like, we go again. And held them to a closer game this time, 16-4. I got a couple of really disappointing turns of shooting with the Crisis Brick. I was holding the game pretty close most of it, and then in the end of the game, the Crisis Bricks activated and just didn't kill what I pointed them at, which was fucking mad. They couldn't kill a Night Spinner, 6 Crisis Suits. So it was not what I expected, but again, good opponent. So I held them to 16-4, and yet everyone else was, trying their best to hold up in their matchups as well, so it was fine. The thing with teams is, when you're losing, you do lose for the team, you lose as a team as well. Like, it's a much nicer feeling than just getting fucking smacked. It is. On singles, when you lose, it's not a good feeling. But, like, at teams, you're like, it's fine, I've taken a bad matchup from someone else. Game 3, we played against Martin and What Happens in Poland. Martin also super, like, I agree with you, Larry. Dude is, like, obviously a veteran 40k player. Just veteran wargamer, I reckon.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Yeah, really, really good. And he was so organised with his pairing stuff as well. Really, really on it. And yeah, I ended up playing against Eldar again, deliberately. This time was a bit of more of an odd list. And even, struggling as hard as I could, I managed to hold them to a 12-8, which was a good feeling. They were not expecting that. I don't think they had this kind of a green matchup for them. They wanted to go into town. So holding them to a very slight win was a good feeling. And we ended up actually managing to come out on top of that series, which was awesome. Really, really chuffed with that, because it meant that we finished day 1 coming out on a high, because we were buzzing that we'd won our first series. And then we went out for dinner, and I'm usually quite a good drinker. I had 1.5 pints. I think because I was knackered, and like I was just really buzzed on adrenaline. I was like, man, I've had 1.5 pints and I feel wasted. Like, weird, man. So yep, that was cool. We saw our pairings for day 2, and we had a bit of a think about them overnight, and we came in the next day, and we were playing against Bruce and his team. Bruce is obviously a very good 40k player. He's playing CSM for Team Scotland, so not to be truffled with. This was the one time... I mean, I say the one time I got a treat. I don't know if anyone else desperately wanted to play against them, because I think actually I had a lot of good matchups into us. I played into a guard artillery list. So I think if Luke had gone at them, it would have been really dire for him.
All the tapestry bodies suddenly not on the board anymore.
Yeah, man, they just fall over. I think Larry would have been fine, because he's so tough that he's just like, okay, keep shooting me, like, see what happens. The Votan, you're tough, but like, there's a lot of guns, dude. It's a lot of guns. So anyway, I was like, fuck it, I'll go into it. I once again will just feel like I'll just dive on the hand grenade. Ended up with a 19-1 win, which felt absolutely rad. I went first. Couldn't see anything turn 1, but I went. I put the afterburners on and rapidly accelerated up the board. He picked up my 6-man crisis suit unit turn 1 from out of LOS, and I was like, oh, so it's gonna be like that, huh? And then turn 2 picked up like 5 sentinels and a tank commander. I almost killed 2 tank commanders. I did only kill 1. Yeah, by turn 3 it was pretty dire, and he'd been kind of boxed out his deployment. My highlight of the game was when the breachers that I managed to advance to in front of his deployment zone. He had the regimental attaches, which need line of sight to boost the artillery, and he had just that one model out of the building. Everyone else was behind the wall. And my 10-man breacher team, God bless their souls, they turned round, 1 CP grenade stratagem at Ursula Creed, blew her up with the grenade. Turned around, activated with the stealth suits guiding them and Shadow Sun's aura into the attaches who are attached to a command squad and 10 infantry and Leontis. And one activation from the breachers, my boys with the shotguns, they kicked in the door and killed through a 6-up invuln and a 5-up feel no pain, or 6-up feel no pain, the entire infantry squad, all of the regimental attaches, the entire command squad, and half of Solar's wounds through the wall.
Good times.
Felt awesome. So that was a really fun game for me when I wasn't getting my shit kicked in. So I was buzzing going into, and then we had a couple of unlucky matchups. Like I said, I had no idea that Luke was going to get dumpstered by the Death Guard. Oh, sorry, not Luke specifically. An Eldar player would be dumpstered by that Death Guard list. It was mean. Had the War Dog Brigands, the shooty War Dogs. Delightful. Really spicy. But we almost managed to squeak out a draw in that series. It was just a couple of points in it. So, unfortunate. And Game 5 was into, Saltar games. So, we went to do the pairings, and I pulled out a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses, and I was like, to AJ, like, oh, do you want one? And he was like, nah, I'm not. And Irish is like, I fucking do. And he was doing the pairings, and I was like, oh, it's all part of my plan to get you drunk. And he was like, oh, joke's on you, I make my best decisions drunk. And from that point onwards, I had never had a harder time pairing than pairing into Irish. Like, it was manic. I couldn't get in his head. I had no idea what to expect at anyone. Hardest pairings of the... Yeah, genuinely, the hardest pairings of the tournament were like against Irish because I had no idea what was coming up. So I ended up playing Death Guard. Yeah, AJ's in chat saying, damn, Irish scored 6 points total. That's for the tournament, by the way, on his Eldar. Wild card, baby. Yeah, it was the wild card. So I ended up actually playing AJ, which is good because we were at a tournament in his shop a couple of months ago, playing singles. I was playing Thousand Suns. We ended up playing each other in the last game of that. So it was the grudge match, the rematch, but actually just another really nice game. Like, it's good. AJ gives you a hard game, but he gives you a good game, and it's a lot of playing by intent and just chatting about what we wanted to do and stuff like that. So when I saw we were going at them for the last series, I was pretty chuffed. I was like, okay, we're gonna have like a good closeout to the weekend, and we managed to win that series. So that was a good feeling. Yeah, well in, guys. So 5 good games.
So overall, it sounds like a pretty awesome weekend was had by everyone. That every single person within the club should now be chomping at the bit to find people to form teams with, so we can just have a full teams tournament in the club, which would be awesome. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for coming on. Thanks so much for the team. Amazing to have Reaper represented in multiple ways, in different gaming competitions, different formats of competitions as well. By the sounds of it, sounds like I'm going to have to get myself on the team at some point soon.
Yep.
Nice. Essentially. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening tonight. Thank you so much for the team for coming on, chatting through your list, chatting through your parents, chatting through what teams is about. Definitely will have encouraged more people, our members, people further afield, to be thinking about teams as an option for them. And I just want to say before we say goodbye tonight, just thank you so much for everyone, for Reaper, for all of you amazing members coming down to the club week in and week out, making game nights fun, making it special for us as a committee. And Reaper's only going to grow, and it's going to grow because of you all who come down every single week, give yourselves all effort into the Discord, chatting to people, helping each other out, and that's what we're all about, and that's what we're going to keep building. and we're going to just keep bringing some amazing stuff over the next year for everyone. So please keep looking out for all of that stuff. And lastly, I just want to say a really happy holiday to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you between Christmas and between the holiday and New Year, and then potentially into the New Year as well. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. And goodbye, everybody.
Happy holidays,
Bye.
guys. See you
Cheers,
later.
guys.
Yeah, thanks all.
Have fun. Bye.